I feel like this is a really important topic because when girls go through puberty and they get their first period, everyone equates this to, oh, you're a woman now. Welcome to womanhood. And the reasoning behind that is, oh, she can get pregnant now, so we have to ease her into womanhood, or we have to treat her as if she is a woman now. Talk to her about the things that her brain is not even thinking about. Her brain cannot even comprehend womanhood, cannot even comprehend what it means to be a woman, because she is not a woman. She is still a child. So I feel like when girls come into puberty and we welcome girls into womanhood through their first period without actually ever explaining to them what this means, what this is for them, how this is going to show up, what a period even is, right? I feel like we're doing girls such a disservice, and I have always felt this way. Even myself going through puberty, it felt like such a disservice to me to not fully understand what a period actually is, right? We hear from our to not fully understand what a period actually is, right? We hear from our moms and our friends' moms and our friends who've gotten their periods. We hear about the cramps and, oh, like it's this thing, right? But we're not actually explained what it is. A lot of people don't even know that you're actually bleeding when you get your period. So a lot of people are getting their periods. A lot of women are getting their periods. A lot of girls are getting their periods, and they're not even understanding what that is. And even in health class, right, we're not actually teaching girls what a period is. We're not teaching girls what it means to have a period, why they're having a period, and the fact that having a period is actually becoming cyclical. You're actually getting an entire new rhythm, okay? Because as girls, before we go through puberty, we are on a circadian rhythm like men are, like boys are, and that's all we're on, right? That's all we have. And then when we get our first period, we are now cyclical like the moon, right? And nobody teaches us that. Nobody teaches us that now we are different than we used to be. We have a different rhythm than we used to have. And so it's really interesting, this topic in particular, the fact that puberty does not equal womanhood, that having a period does not make you a woman. That is what I really want to touch on and what I really want to talk about, and what I talk about in my podcast, Moonflower, and also what I talk about in the Period Positivity ebook. Okay, I created an ebook specifically for tweens and teens to understand what a period even is, to walk them through getting a period. We don't even teach them what a uterus is, and we just expect them to get their periods and just figure it out. We're going to give you some pads. We're going to give you some pads, and you're going to figure it out. You and your friends, you're going to figure it out, okay? It doesn't matter how you do it. Don't ask me for help. I'm just going to give you what you need, okay? And I feel like that's where we are giving girls a complete disservice. That's where we're losing girls. That's where we are shifting the narrative of what it means to be a girl, to be a woman, okay? When we are women ourselves and we are not teaching the younger generation what it means to have a period, what it means to be cyclical, we are leaving them out of the conversation entirely and just expecting them to figure it out. Yeah, girl, you got it. You got it. Do you even know what it is? No? That's okay, because you'll figure it out, okay? You thought you were dying when it happened? That's okay. You're not. But I'm not going to explain further what it means to you. what it means that this is happening to you. Okay? So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I've been getting so many comments recently, especially on a lot of my videos where I'm talking about girlhood, okay? Girls gotta stick together. And what better way for girls to stick together than for women to talk to girls about what's happening with their changing bodies? You can't just give a girl the American Girl like puberty book that goes over all the things that are changing in their bodies and expect them to read it and understand what's happening, right? So in my period positivity ebook that is on my page, in the ebook, it's actually linking to the podcast Moonflower that I created, where I'm specifically talking about what it means to get a period, what it means to have a period, what it means to become cyclical. Because we are leaving girls out of the conversation entirely. And it's not okay that we're doing this, guys. It's not okay that we're doing this. The girls need to know what's happening. Okay? The girls need to know what's happening. We are not being girls, okay, by holding this information and withholding this information from the next generation of girls. Okay, we're actually doing the complete opposite. We're actually upholding patriarchy when we don't teach girls what a period is, when we don't teach girls what's happening to their body in puberty, right? And I feel like that is something that patriarchy has really, really honed in on, is withholding that information from girls entirely. Because if you don't know what's happening with your body, then somebody else can explain it to you, right? And if someone else is explaining it to you, then you're always going to be outsourcing your power, because you're always going to be looking for the answers somewhere else. This is why I created the Moonflower podcast and the Period Positivity ebook, so that girls can not only read about what's happening with their bodies, but also have someone auditorily explain what is going on and how to cope with the changes that are happening in their bodies, how to shift the narrative from, oh my gosh, this is so scary, to, oh my gosh, this is really empowering. Like, I'm feeling really powerful now that my body is changing. And I feel like the reason that we equate puberty to womanhood, and when a girl gets her first period, we're like, oh, welcome to the club. You're a woman now. You're not. You're not. And we think that just because a girl gets her period, we automatically have to talk to her about the birds and the bees. Honey, if she's 10 years old, she's not even thinking about the birds and the bees. She has no idea what that is. And we're bringing this into the conversation as if that is the only thing that this means, as if that is the only thing that is worthy of talking about, because you now have a period, because you're now becoming cyclical. But we're not teaching girls about the 4 phases of their cycle. We're not teaching girls how to care for themselves differently in each phase of their cycle. We're not teaching girls that you can eat differently in each phase of your cycle for the best benefit of your hormones, the best advantage of your hormones. We're not teaching girls that you can move differently in different phases of your cycle to actually get the results that you're looking for. Okay? We're not teaching girls that we move our bodies because we love our bodies. We're teaching girls that we move our bodies because we're trying to change something about our bodies, because we're trying to lose weight, because we're trying to gain weight, because we're trying to gain gains, okay, in the gym. We're not teaching girls the importance of caring for their cyclical bodies. We're not teaching girls the importance of caring for themselves while they are going through these changes, of being compassionate and kind to themselves as they are learning this new version of who they are. They've never had a cycle before. They've never experienced a period before. They've never experienced all these hormone changes. And I feel like teenage girls get such a bad rep when it comes to being a teenage girl? Simply because they are a teenage girl. Because nobody is teaching them why they're having all these big feelings, why they're suddenly so frustrated by everyone and everything, why all of these things are causing their brain to feel so scattered and everywhere they have no idea what's going on. Okay? And we're just expecting them to figure it out and understand it. How can you understand something that you've never learned, that you know what I'm saying? Like, no one has ever taught this to you before. How can you understand what's happening if no one is teaching you, if no one is guiding you along the way? And this is why it is so important for girls to understand what it means to be cyclical. For girls to understand that they are going from being on a circadian rhythm only, okay? Because before puberty, before your first period, before your first ovulation, because no one teaches us that we ovulate before our first period. There is something going on behind the scenes that is happening, right? We're noticing the discharge. We're noticing the things that are changing. But no one is telling us about it. And then we get our first period and we're like, oh my God, what is this? Something is happening to me. And no one told me about it. And now I'm scared of my own body. Because no one taught me what this means. No one taught me that this is going to happen. No one told me about this. Why did no one warn me what was happening? What was going to happen? Why did no one warn me that I was going to look at my underwear and there was going to be blood? Why am I just finding this out on my own? And I'm sure there's been conversations about it, but I know I've also had comments from women. I have also spoken directly to women who were not told anything about periods. If you're jumping into the conversation right now, what were you told about your first period? What were you told about periods before you got your first period? What did you know about periods before you actually got yours? Okay, tell me in the comments. Let's talk about it right now, because there are way too many women who have horror stories when it comes to getting their first period, when it comes to going through puberty in general. Okay? Because before puberty, before your first period, you get your first ovulation, okay? You're experiencing discharge. You're seeing discharge. Your body is changing, okay? You're growing hair. You're getting body odor. You have no idea what's happening. All of a sudden, you stink. And you're like, what? What? Why do I smell so bad? Okay? Why do I smell so bad? Why am I getting hair under my arms? Why am I getting hair on my legs? Why am I getting hair in places that there shouldn't be hair? Okay, there's never been hair there before. What is happening? No one's talking about it, okay? It's a taboo topic that nobody wants to talk about, but it needs to be talking about because it's happening to 50% of the population. We're talking to boys about what's happening with their bodies. We spent an entire day, okay, an entire hour of health class talking about boys and their wet dreams. But all we learned about girls and puberty and periods was that you're going to get a period and you can get pregnant. What? And then we learned about STDs. Where is the conversation about the 4 phases of the cycle? Where is the conversation about how girls are supposed to be taking care of ourselves differently? That conversation is nowhere to be found. Okay? That conversation is nowhere to be found. And that is why I started to talk about it. That is why I feel like, hey, that conversation is nowhere to be found. And that is why I started to talk about it. That is why I feel like it is so important and needs to be talked about. That's the Moon Hour podcast, which you can find in my bio. That's why I created the Period Positivity ebook for tweens and teens, so they can actually understand what their uterus is, what they're looking at below the belt, okay? Listed out for them what each part is, okay? This is why I created this resource for girls, and not only is it written out for them to go through what a period even is. I talk about what is a period. Okay? A period is not just about getting pregnant. When you're 9 and 10 years old getting your period, you're not even thinking about getting pregnant. You're not even thinking about this conversation that everyone is trying to have with you, because that is irrelevant to your current reality. We should not be talking to girls about periods in the form of, now you can get pregnant, so don't do the thing. To girls about periods in the form of, now you can get pregnant, so don't do the thing. I'm sorry, but we're not. And why is that the conversation that we're having? When the conversation should be, you have a period now. This is a superpower. You have 4 phases of your cycle. You are 4 different versions of yourself throughout the month. Power. You have 4 phases of your cycle. You are 4 different versions of yourself throughout the month. And that is empowering. That is exciting, because not only do you get to be this awesome shining light version of yourself, but you also get to reflect on who you've been this cycle. You also get to release who you no longer want to be this cycle. You also get to create this amazing version of yourself, right? And then you also need time away from the world so that you can just be with yourself. And that is important in and of itself. When we teach girls that they always have to be on and they always have to be, like, we're always hanging out with our friends. And like, teenage girls get in this loop and this trap in their minds where they cannot be alone with themselves. Where teenage girls are so depressed, right? Because they don't know how to be alone with themselves and enjoy it. That is what we need to be teaching teenage girls. That your period is time for you to reset every single month. It is a time for you to shift how you want to show up in the world. It is not a curse. Can we please stop that narrative? It is so frustrating to me that we are telling girls that getting a period is a curse, and it's gonna be painful, and it's gonna suck, and they're gonna hate it. Why are we teaching girls that about something that happens to them for 75% of their life? We are literally on our period for like, I don't even know the actual number. It's like 500 days out of our whole life, out of like our whole reproductive life. From the time that we get our first period until menopause, we are literally bleeding for 500 days of our life. And we're teaching girls to hate it. We're teaching girls that it's terrible and that it's disgusting and that it's shameful. Hello? Are we okay? Are we okay? It's so misogynistic to teach girls to hate their periods. It is so misogynistic to teach girls that their periods are an inconvenience. So if we're still teaching that to girls, I'm going to need you to go to my bio, okay? Find the Period Positivity ebook, find the Moonflower podcast, send it to your teen, send it to your tween, so they can learn what it actually means to get a period. What it actually means to become cyclical. The power that we hold when we step over the threshold of puberty. Not because we are becoming a woman, because puberty. Not because we are becoming a woman, because puberty does not equal womanhood. Okay? Going through puberty does not equate to being a woman. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. They are still a child when this is happening, and they need to be explained this information as if they are still a child. They need to understand what is happening through the lens of childhood, through the lens of girlhood, okay? Through the lens of someone who has never experienced this before. Your daughter to you tells you that she's gotten her first period. You don't want to be the mom who throws her a pack of pads and tells her to figure it out. You don't. I'm telling you. You might think that you do just because you don't want to have that conversation with her, but not having that conversation with her is not helpful to her, because she's only going to go to her friends or to someone else to find that information. If you don't know how to talk to your daughter about having her first period, if you don't know how to explain what a period is to your daughter, okay, I need you to go find my period positivity ebook. I need you to go to the Moonflower podcast. The Moonflower podcast is free. Okay, this is a free resource that is on Spotify. It's on YouTube with cute little videos and fun little graphics that you guys can watch together to learn what is happening. Okay, I have 3 episodes out currently. Becoming a Moonflower, which talks about the shift from only having a circadian rhythm to also now having an infradian rhythm, from going from living like a man, a boy, okay, with only the sun, to living with the moon. That's what a moonflower is. A moonflower is a flower that only blooms with the moon, and that is why I named it that. Because once we get our first period, we shift from this rhythm of the sun to also having this rhythm with the moon. And that is such a cool thing about women and girls. About women and girls is that we not only have one rhythm, but we have 2. We are on a 24-hour cycle with the sun, with men, with boys, right? And we are also on a 28, 29-ish day cycle with the moon. Okay, that is how we create our life as girls and women, is through the lunar cycle, through the cycle of the moon. When I was a girl, I used to think that there was a man in the moon, okay? My mom used to tell me that there was a man in the moon, and I used to be in the car, and I'm looking out, and I'm seeing the moon, and I used to think that the moon was following me, okay? Because I was special, because I was chosen, because the moon loved me, okay? And so to learn that I was on a cycle with the moon, that I was now creating my life through the energy of the moon, that would have been so insanely cool to me. What are girls doing? Girls are playing with witchcraft, okay? Let me cook, okay? Let me cook. Girls are playing with witchcraft. Girls are making soups and stews with sticks and leaves and like potions and all this outside, like in nature, when we're playing in nature, when we're playing in the bathtub, like we're creating potions and stews and like all these things. We are creating, okay, through magic. Hello? And we're not teaching girls that when you get a period, when you go through puberty, that magic is expanded. We are withholding this information from girls because, I mean, a lot of women don't understand it themselves. Like, how many of you that are coming in right now, how many of you were taught about your first period? What were you taught about your first period? Come in the comments and let me know. I genuinely want to have a conversation about this. I genuinely want to know what your first experience of having a period was like. I'm genuinely curious, because the fact that there are so many women now who don't understand that we are one with the moon, that the moon literally influences our cycle, that we are literally creating through the lunar cycle, through our menstrual cycle, okay? The fact that there are so many women who don't even understand that we have 4 phases of our cycle. How can you teach your daughters if you don't know this information? So this is not to say anything wrong about moms who don't teach their daughters this information. This is just to bring that information to light, to show you that there is another way, to show you that there is more to the conversation than just, here's a pack of pads, figure it out. Okay? Don't use tampons. Okay? Here's pads, don't use tampons. You don't know, like, that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other conversation. We don't want girls to be familiar with their bodies. We don't want girls to explore their own bodies. We want that to be shameful. Through patriarchy, we want that to be shameful. We want that to be taboo. We want that to be something that they are scared of. We want them to fear the power of their bodies because that power scares the people around them. When girls and women start to fully embody the magic and the power of the menstrual cycle, it scares people, okay? When the womb becomes your religion, okay? When you learn that the womb is the truth, the light, and the way, it changes everything, okay? It changes everything. When we go from talking about the blood of Jesus to the blood of the womb, it shifts the whole conversation. Womb is life, okay? No one would be here on this earth without the blood of the womb. No one would be here on this earth without first coming through a mother, okay? We only have mothers and their children on this earth. And I need us to really understand that, okay? I need us to really take that information in, okay? Teaching girls that their periods are scary, teaching girls to be afraid of their bodies, teaching girls to be fearful of their changing bodies is patriarchy. It is misogyny. It is oppression, okay? Teaching girls that periods are shameful should be a sin. Okay, if we really want to talk about sinning, okay? You want to talk about mothers, okay? Literally, though, if you want to talk about sinning, not teaching girls the power of their bodies should be a sin. Teaching girls that they are now a woman when they get their first period, that should be shameful. Because why are we teaching girls that? Oh, you can get it. Oh, you got your period. Oh, you can get pregnant now. Be careful. What does that mean? What are we talking about here? No 9 or 10-year-old girl, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girl is thinking about getting pregnant. So why is that part of the conversation? Talking about a period should not equate to talking about now you can get pregnant. Should not equate to talking about the birds and the bees. It should not be a shameful conversation or a conversation that we are avoiding for any reason. Like, it begs the question, are you okay? So, if you're a mom with a daughter, okay, a tween, a teen daughter, if you're a girl mom, I need you to go to my bio, check out my free podcast, Moonflower. You can grab it on Spotify or YouTube. YouTube has fun little videos with some cute little graphics, okay, where I'm talking about becoming cyclical. I'm talking about the power of puberty. I'm talking about meeting your period, not your period happening to you, okay? We're talking about the body odor. We're talking about the body hair. We're talking about the shift in mindset. We're talking about the emotional roller coaster that is being a teen girl, okay? Because like I said, teen girls get such a bad rep, and it's so frustrating because the reason that teen girls get such a bad rep is because no one is having this conversation with them. No one is telling them what is happening with their hormones. No one is telling them that now your estrogen is rising, okay? You are gaining estrogen and progesterone. You are gaining these new hormones. These new hormones are coming online. They're being activated by this new shift in your body. And this is creating the 4 phases of your cycle. This is creating a new kind of rhythm that you've never experienced before. And this is why my podcast is called Moonflower, because a moonflower only blooms with the moon. And when you get your first period, you are going from a circadian rhythm where you are only in tune with the sun to also being in tune with the moon. That's why I created this podcast. That's why I talk about this. That's why I created the Period Positivity ebook, for girls to not only learn about the changes that are happening in their body, but to learn about what a period even is, to learn about the importance of what that means, to learn how to track it, to learn what discharge is, to learn what it means, okay? Because your period is not an inconvenience. Your period is not shameful. It is not something that you need to hide away from the world. It is actually your greatest strength when you know how to work with it. When you know how to tap into the magic of your cycle, it is a strength. Okay, it is a superpower, and that is what I teach girls. That is why I teach girls this information. Because if someone had told me at 13, 14 years old that I'm getting this new superpower, that now all of a sudden my body is changing and I'm aligning with the moon and I'm getting tuned into my intuition through the cycle of the moon, I'm having my own cycle with the moon. The moon phases can change like with my cycle. I can have a period with the new moon or the full moon, and that can change throughout my life. That ovulation is the most important part of the menstrual cycle, and nothing else can happen without it. And that my period is not late, I'm just ovulating later in the cycle. If someone had explained that information to me, if someone had told me that it could take between 2 and 12 years for my menstrual cycle to regulate, if someone had explained to me that just because I now have a period does not mean that it's going to show up on the same day every month. It's not about tracking the day that your period shows up. It's about tracking the cycle as a whole, from one period to the next. How many days is your cycle? Not how many days is your period. How many days is your cycle? If someone had taught me to pay attention to what my period looks like, because your period is your 5th vital sign, okay? Your vital signs are like your breathing, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your pulse, okay? Your period is your 5th vital sign. And no one is teaching us that. No one is talking about that with girls. No one is telling them to look at their period, okay? Everyone is teaching them to be disgusted by their period, to be ashamed of their period, to hide their period products, to hide their period in general. We're shoving tampons up our sleeve. 50% of the population experiences periods for 75% of their life. And we're hiding it. And we're shaming it. And we're making it disgusting. We're teaching girls to be afraid of their own bodies. I wonder why that is. I wonder why a patriarchal society that is run by men and created for men would teach women and girls to be ashamed of and scared of their bodies. Would teach women to be ashamed of their periods. The same periods that create the pregnancies that they want so badly. I wonder why that is. Could it be that this is actually our power? That this is actually a superpower that we are being taught to throw away as if it is nothing? Could it be that this is actually the magic of being a human, of being a woman, of being a girl? Could it not be that? Does it have to be something that we're ashamed of? Does it have to be something that we're afraid of? Just like our pleasure, right? Boys are allowed to tap into their pleasure from day one. Boys are taught that that's just how it goes. That's just what happens. You're gonna get that. You're gonna touch it, and it's okay. But we don't teach girls the same thing. We teach girls that that's shameful. And so girls end up not exploring their bodies. Girls end up not exploring their pleasure, not understanding what that even is until someone else explains it for them or does it to them. I feel like girls between 9 and 13 should be taught about the cyclical nature of what it means to have a period, to be taught about the cyclical nature of what it means to have a cycle, should be taught about the 4 phases of the cycle, tracking your cycle, and understanding what it means. And I think that girls between the ages of 14 and 17 should be taught that pleasure is not someone else's responsibility, that it's not something that you let someone else figure out for you. It's something that you explore yourself. Okay? I'm like, if girls come to me and they're talking about, oh, well, I'm thinking about doing this with someone. I just had my first kiss and I'm thinking about going farther. Explore your own body before you allow someone else to explore your body or before you explore anyone else's. That's a real conversation that we should be having with girls. And it's not something that's talked about. It's not something that we're talking about to girls. It's okay for boys. It's okay for boys. Boys can do whatever they want with their bodies. Boys can do whatever they want with whoever they want as many times as they want, and it's just socially acceptable. But then girls have this limitation of virginity, right? And I feel like that's a social construct, that virginity, right? And I feel like that's a social construct that really needs to be deconstructed. I feel like that's something that needs to be talked about more. And when we don't talk about that in a way, like when we talk about virginity, right? Losing your virginity. First of all, you're not losing anything. Okay, let's start there. You're not losing anything. There's nothing to lose. Okay? That is just, I've deconstructed that before, and I think I need to make another video on deconstructing that in general, because that conversation just really grinds my gears, if I'm being honest. Because why are we teaching girls that the same thing that we're teaching boys is good for them is bad for girls? Makes girls less valuable. Why is something that boys are encouraged to do with girls making girls less valuable to boys? That has never fully made sense to me. And I feel like it's something that we need to break down in conversation. Because when we look at it through the patriarchal sense of boys' pleasure is more important or more valuable than girls' pleasure, and that girls' pleasure is in fact not valuable at all. We are teaching girls not to value themselves, to not respect themselves. That if they do something with boys, it is them who is wrong, who is bad, who is like no longer pure. Because the whole waiting until marriage thing that Christianity has like put into all of our heads, that religion has filled our heads with, oh, you need to wait until marriage. You need to save yourself for marriage. What does that even mean? Can someone explain that to me? What am I saving? It just logically does not make sense. Because if boys are encouraged to do it, and through Christianity and religion, they're encouraged to do it only with girls, then why does that same thing make girls less pure, less valuable to boys? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. And I think, on that note, I think that's all I have to say for now. And this gave me some good content ideas that we're going to be talking about on my page. So follow along, subscribe to the YouTube, check out the Period Positivity ebook. If you are a woman, check out the Lunar Womb Cycle ebook. Check out the Lunar Womb Portal podcast and the Moonflower podcast for girls and moms. And let's have a conversation. Leave me a comment on one of my videos on something that you want me to talk about more. Send me a DM. Leave a comment on the podcast. And let me know the conversations that you're ready to have about being a girl, about being a woman, and about what it means to become cyclical. Because it's something that we're not talking about enough, and it's something that we need to talk about more. So